This is HighIntensityBusiness.com with Lawrence Neal, helping you become a great personal trainer and grow your high-intensity training business.
This episode is brought to you by ARX, the most innovative, efficient, and effective all-in-one exercise machines I have ever seen. I was really impressed with my ARX workout. The intensity and adaptive resistance was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I love how the machine enables you to increase the negative load to fatigue target muscles more quickly, and I love how the workouts are effortlessly quantified. The software tracks maximum force output, rate of work, total amount of work done, and more in front of you on screen, allowing you to compete with your previous performance to give you and your clients real-time motivation. The ARX uses a computer-controlled motor to give you the exact amount of resistance your clients need 100% of the time. This means that the resistance can never become dangerous, is intuitive and simple to use, and can provide you with all of the results you and your clients are looking for in a fraction of the time. ARX is highly effective and efficient in delivering all of the benefits of exercise, including increased strength, muscle mass, cardiovascular conditioning, bone mineral density, and injury recovery. As well as being utilized by many high-intensity trainers to deliver highly effective and efficient workouts to their clients, ARX comes highly recommended by world-class trainers and brands, including Bulletproof, Tony Robbins, and Ben Greenfield Fitness. To find out more about ARX and get $500 off install when you place an order, please go to arxfit.com and mention HIB, that's High Intensity Business, in the How Did You Hear About Us field. So again, to get $500 off install when you place an order, head on over to arxfit.com and enter HIB in the How Did You Hear About Us field. Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to HighIntensityBusiness.com. My guest today is Mike Petrella. Mike is the owner and operator of STG Strength and Power, one of the finest and best equipped private gyms in the world. Mike is MEDX HIT certified via the IART, SPARTA Master HIT certified as a youth fitness instructor, and winner of the prestigious Most Innovative Training Program with the World Head of Family Soakship Council, and coach to 61 AWPC, WPC, IPA, RPS 100% raw powerlifting world records. Moreover, Mike is also the host of Roger's TV show In the Gym. He's recently transitioned to a new facility in Ontario, Canada, boasting 4,000 square feet of space and an awesome collection of 100 exercise machines, earning him the Envy Award at this year's Resistance Exercise Conference. Oh, and he's only 33 years of age. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on again, Lawrence.
It's my pleasure. It's good to catch up again, and obviously great to see you at this year's conference. So, you've recently moved into this amazing new facility. You posted the video tour on YouTube. I had the pleasure of watching that this morning, and I was just, pretty much like everyone else who watched that and commented on it, salivating at all of your machines. And your collection is the envy of everyone in this industry. Well, maybe there's a few people who have a similar collection, or maybe even more, but very few indeed. So tell me how are things going since you moved into new facility? How's business? How's it going for you?
We're good. We're very busy, which we're very thankful for. Every time we've gone to something larger, we've always had a spike in business. So, I know there's people that don't believe in if you build it, they will come. But it's been my experience that if you do build it, and if you're passionate about it, things certainly have a way of working themselves out. I know that as we got more trainers, we were starting to get a little bit cramped on the floor. We probably could have taken some of the machines out of the previous facility to make the laneways a little bit easier and to make it a little bit easier on the trainers. But we always wanted to expand into something much larger. We were operating one main facility, and then we had a second facility that we kind of called our overflow facility, just so we had a little bit of more variation, a little bit of extra space. But the plan was always to go to something much larger. And since we've moved in, we've had record weeks, and we've only been there full time for about 4 or 5 weeks now. I haven't done the month, but I'm quite sure it's going to be our busiest ever. And it's been great. The clients are loving it because there's a lot of new options. some of the machines, they were actually on different floors at different points. And we've had people that have been with us that long that they remember using them. But for a lot of people, they're brand new. And for the trainers, we're having a lot of fun because it gives us different options that we can put together. And when it comes to the rehabilitation side of things, we finally got all the MedX medical machines together. We've only had 3 of the 5 on a floor at one time. And it just makes our job easier. So we've been having a lot of fun with it. Business has been busy, and we're pretty happy.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. And it's great to see you having success early on. That is really positive. Do you want to, because I know this is something you touched on in the membership, but maybe the kind of main podcast audience hasn't heard you say this, but do you want to talk about the inspiration behind what made you decide to create one mega studio as opposed to scaling multiple smaller studios?
Absolutely. Now, I want to say off the hop though, because we both have a lot of friends who they do the multi facilities, and that's what their goals are. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's a fantastic way of building up your business. I just wanted to do something a little bit bigger because I was talking with Roger Schwab a couple years ago, and as you know, he's a great guy. And he built Mainline Health and Fitness years ago. And I've always felt that Mainline and Gainesville down in Florida are kind of the 2 premier facilities in our neck of the woods in our industry. I know Roger has sold Mainline in the last few years, but when he was owning it at its peak, it was really something else. And it was actually Arthur Jones who told Roger that, get one facility and make it the best you possibly can. And I never got to meet Arthur, but that came, straight from the horse's mouth, as they say. And that just something that speaks to me. Now, it's not to say I'll never have another facility somewhere else. Anytime a business deal comes my way, good or bad or ugly, I always take a look at it and see what I think it is. But the goal was to really have something that not only could we have all our clients come in and have some really fantastic workouts, but we like having people that make the trip to come see us. We had a gentleman named Jeff Watson just show up the other day, and he is the head strength and conditioning coach for Western University. For those who aren't in Canada, Western is one of the biggest universities in our entire country. And we have what's called the Vanier Cup, which is our version of a national championship for football. And they have been in that the past 2 years to kind of give you an idea of how big and how successful that program is. So to have the head strength and conditioning coach for the entire university want to come and see the gym was a great honor to us. And then next week, we'll have Brian Dawson and the guys from Pendulum come up, and they're going to be dropping off a machine. But, they're going to come and kind of see a little bit about what we do. And we have one of the larger Pendulum collections in Canada. So we really wanted to build something that, people wanted to come see. And even our mutual friend, Simon Shawcross there from the UK, he had some some family actually. And just by chance, they live about 45 minutes from me. So when he was up this way on vacation, he was able to make the trip down. So we have a lot of fun having these people come down, and we can share a bit about what we do. And we always like to pick up stuff from them of what they do. And that was really the goal, to almost have a facility that was a beacon that we can share information and we can all kind of grow from it.
Totally. And hopefully we'll have some time to cover Simon's visit later on this show. But one of the things that I was curious about, and which you actually touched on earlier, is about the freedom you now have. And you already had a great degree of this, but to configure so many different workouts for clients. And you're in this kind of almost unique position where you can you can prevent log jamming in your studio because you have so many machines and more space now. And then you can also it's almost like a client could come in and do a different workout, every single workout in their entire tenure at your facility, over like a 20-year period, because you've got so many variations of machines. Now, has that been the case? Have you found that, with the changes, with having more machines and more space, that it's just even more, you've got more luxury to experiment and do different programming?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. I was actually listening to one of your other podcasts that just went live the other day with Jay, and he was talking about how he thought that the way to go moving forward is to just have more pieces, as opposed to maybe doing different protocols on the same pieces, and both are fine. But it's been my experience, at least as a trainer, that there is a certain simplicity to just having these options and putting everything together, as opposed to possibly just having, say, one pull down, and we're going to do negative only, we're going to do negative accentuated, we're going to do a couple forceps, and we have all these excellent ways of making it work. And certainly in my earlier days, that was what we did. But there is a very interesting simplicity of just being able to put people on a piece, and we know we're going to work hard, we know we're going to go to failure, or as close to as their mentality allows for, and then just giving them something completely new that they've never seen. The interesting part's been, in some cases, just trying to figure out what the weights are going to be. Sometimes we guess it a little heavier or guess it a little light. We make the corrections pretty quick. But even finding certain combinations of machine that seem to work better than others, it's almost like there's these pairings that just come naturally through working with people. And we're even just in the early stages with it. Like I said, we've been only training people full time in the new facility for about a month now, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. And we're even learning stuff as we go. So it's been a lot of fun. We've certainly had a lot of positive feedback. And like many of the people who come on your show talk about, word of mouth being the biggest driver of getting clients into your gym. There's been something about this new facility where even people who we've been training for many years, who maybe have already told the majority of their friends, it seems to have reinvigorated them, that there might be some new people in their lives, or some people that were on the fence, and the idea that, hey, you got to see this new facility. It's really been bringing people in, which is always nice.
Absolutely. And I think it's just one of the things that occurred to me maybe is that you've just differentiated yourself even more than you had previously, in that now you're even more of a kind of a unicorn in your area, right? You've got the huge facility, which boasts the most diverse mixture of vintage and high quality and even new, in the case of, I guess, Pendulum machinery. And I think that perhaps really helps you also attract clients. Is that a fair statement, or do you think I'm overstating that?
No, I would say you're on the mark with that. Even at the old facility, which was the floor space was about a third of the size, you would still walk somebody in, and they'd see some really heavy duty equipment with with the Med-X and the Nautilus and the Pendulum. Those are the three main lines that we have. And I think a lot of your listeners would probably find the same thing, that are running facilities, that there's a lot of private training available in just about every area, but a lot of people that they're running out of their garage or their basement. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I started in a garage, in a basement. But when you walk them into a facility it's very professional looking, with a lot of really heavy duty looking equipment, that alone is going to differentiate you from your competitors. It just gives you a much more professional look. And then luckily in our case, when they walk in and the building is quite large, and they're looking down the laneway. Our laneway is 100 feet now, and they see about 100 pieces. And they may have been shopping somewhere else. They may have gone into a couple other facilities, and they will not see anything that looks quite like what we have. And before we even talk about what we do, or before we even talk about what we believe in terms of training methodology, just that overwhelming feeling of, look at all this stuff in here. It does seem to work well in the business sense. Now we have everything in there because it's about the training, and that's what we believe in. But even I bought a hammer H squat from Eric McKay at Noble. Luckily for me, he was running out of space for it. And if you're not familiar with the machine, Lawrence, it's 10 feet tall. And
Right.
people look at it, and I bought it because it was a conversation starter. And it's actually funny because I love the piece. It's actually a very good, very usable piece. But just having it there, and people go up to them, what is this? And then they want to know the story of how it was made and why would somebody do this? It just gets them into the gym. They're becoming more comfortable with the floor space. And then the first time they use it, they got to walk up those stairs. It's just something unique that you can give them that they're not going to get anywhere else in town. And I think in a lot of different industries right now, not just ours, which is of course weight training and strength training, people are looking for something different. Why am I going to spend my time and my money here? And that's just one of the things that we've done to make us unique and hopefully make us stand out from some of the other businesses that may be in our area.
So you've still got one of your older units, which you decided to turn into kind of like a multidisciplinary business. Do you want to elaborate on that and tell the listeners what you're doing there?
Absolutely. So where the last gym used to be, and what we refer to it now, the gym we're in now is the 5th gym we've had. So we call it stage 5. So stage 4 was the main gym that we operated out of from end of 2011, 2012 till basically about the beginning of this year. And that building was 2,000 square feet, but only about 1,500 of it was usable floor space. So we were looking at what we could do with it that would make the most sense in terms of being in conjunction with this new building. And we did look at the idea of maybe leaving some equipment there and having the second facility. But we built the new one, so all of the equipment could fit into it. So we didn't necessarily have, say, a circuit of 12 machines to leave behind. And I didn't really want to go out and buy anything. But what made sense for us was to bring in these different disciplines of registered massage therapists, dietitians, chiropractors. In our country, these particular fields are very heavily regulated, and they are considered medical professionals. I know in every country they have kind of different laws and different training amongst these people. But for instance, our registered massage therapist in Canada, they can virtually work anywhere in the world because their standards are so high compared to most other countries. So whereas strength training in our country is done primarily in the private sector, whereas the people are paying out of pocket. I got a couple of clients, they have some really good benefits that cover strength training, but that's few and far between. 90% of the business is between you and the person you're training. Whereas these other disciplines that I talked about, they all have, they can pay out of pocket, of course, but they have these benefit plans that cover these different things, and it's considered to be medical professionals. So we thought that what would be smart was to bring them in, because a lot of our clients actually are these people that are already working in these different clinics, and they already understand the value of strength training, and they understand the methodology that we're using. So we thought to put them in conjunction with what we're already doing, because we have clients where we already share them with RMTs and chiropractors, and we thought, well, we might as well put this all, even though it will be 2 locations, I say under one roof, so that way we can effectively train them a little bit better. We're going to have dialogues with our own people in-house, and especially when we're dealing with a lot of rehabilitation injury clients. If I know who the therapist is that's going to be working with them, and we can keep together with a treatment plan, it's my feeling that we can give a better quality of service to the person who's training, and also hopefully accelerate their results. So that's what we're going to do with the stage 4 building. Is we're almost done the renovations now. I think we're going to have the first couple of people in. We're hoping for May 1, which is a couple days from right now. I know you have these podcasts, maybe launch a a few weeks after we talk live. But May 1, we were hoping to have the first couple people, and I'd say realistically it's going to be the middle of May. But it's going to be good. We'll certainly do a social media launch and let people know what we're doing and that we're here. This is actually the first time we're talking about it outside of just private conversations in town. So we're really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a nice little add-on to what we're already doing with the strength training.
Yeah, I appreciate you talking about it here, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it will add a lot of value to your current clients, and yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a smart move. So hope it works out well for you, and yeah, keep us posted on the progress on that one. Okay, so both of us recently attended the Resistance Exercise Conference in 2019, which feels like a distant memory now, sadly, and we'll have to wait another year until it comes around again. Although I still feel like I feel the soreness from the early morning workout. But you gave a great presentation. So just to give the listeners some context, there was a segment during the conference called Rapid, and many of the HIIT entrepreneurs kind of got up on stage, and they had 4 minutes to deliver a very succinct presentation, and a variety of subjects were addressed, and they were all very, very good, and everyone's a very good presenter. Some were kind of just hard hitting with data and facts and great advice, and others were very entertaining. Adam Zuckerman comes to mind. But yours was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. And I made a note to talk to you about it afterwards because I wanted to say, hey, Mike, let's do a podcast about that. And your presentation was about how to create the perfect introductory workout. Now, unfortunately, for some reason, the file with the slides for your presentation has corrupted on my laptop. So you're going to have to remind me of the actual process and the steps that you explored during your Rapid presentation. So do you want to just go through, how you run a sort of perfect introductory workout in your eyes?
No problem. I got this one memorized because we do it quite a bit. So
I would hope so.
Right there. Before we get into it, I kind of want to give a bit of a shameless plug there for the actual conference. And I think this was my third year attending. And don't get me wrong, the conference itself is great. If you just wanted to go just for the knowledge itself, it'd be well worth it. But I can't give Luke and Hannah and their staff enough credit. I love going because it's really become a community. They've worked their tails off to kind of make sure that happens for everybody. And in a world where a lot of us know each other strictly online, which is fine. I have friends that have even helped me find exercise machines in different countries who I've never met in person and have gone out of their way to help me. It's nice to have a place where we can all kind of get together and meet. And just like you, Lawrence, I met you in person for the first time last year at the conference. And I can't stress enough to the people that are listening that, give it a go if you haven't already. It's a lot of fun. A lot of knowledge passed on, but even just getting together of everyone. So that's my shameless plug for Luke and the group there. And then I'll answer your question.
I agree. But it's only a shameless plug if it's your conference, Mike. So yeah, that's just a very, very, nice and effective testimonial. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I do that all the time.
Well, that's good. I do mean that. I do think it is very important for helping bring everyone together, because we've talked about it both on your podcast and off your podcast that realistically the majority of us are further together than we are apart. And I think when people get together, they can find those similarities and they can find those friendships and find those colleagues a little bit easier than maybe looking at a static video or static picture online and say, wow, that's not what I believe in, or that's not what I do. Well, maybe it's not exactly what you do, but it's probably relatively close to what you do. And again, I think there's something to be said about conversing in the real world and building those friendships and those dialogues with people that I think is very important. So, yep, I think everyone should go. And now I'll get on to to answering your question about the intro workout. So
yeah, sorry, go. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Well, I was just gonna start up. So what we talked about, like you said, we only had 4 minutes, so we couldn't get into it as much as we may have liked. I know Bill Crawford there. He was talking about the medical low back, and I think he probably could have gone on for an hour, no problem about it. But we only had 4 minutes, so we had, it got cut off. But it is what it is. So what I talked about was, I guess, how we would administer an intro workout to someone coming in the very first time to our facility. And we wanted to make it, a bit about why we physically do the workout and how it relates to the whole body. And then also how someone who's in business would sell the idea of the workout, and how the selling process might not necessarily be 100% before the workout is performed, but actually during the workout, and some of the knowledge that you were going to express to your client. So we also said at the beginning of the talk that this is assuming that there's no injuries that are related, and there was no, health concern that would limit certain things. Obviously, if we had a knee injury, there might be some lower body exercises that we just can't perform. So that was my intro, that this is assuming we're dealing with a relatively healthy person, just looking to get in shape and start the process with you. So the first exercise that we do, and what we talked about, was putting your best foot forward. And what we meant by that was we start with the old Nautilus system, where we do the biggest, strongest musculature first, and then work down to the smallest. And we feel that starting with the best compound lower body exercise that you have is where you want to start. Now, if you're in a basic facility with just barbells, it might just be your barbell squat, and that's fine. We tend to lean heavier on the leg press for beginners, and we do have, the pendulum standing squat, which I think is the best squatting motion out there right now. But we start with the leg press, and we're fortunate at our place. We have quite a diversity. So even amongst the leg press that we have, we've identified our two best as the MedX Avenger leg press and the pendulum seated squat, not the standing squat. We, like I said, we want to start, even though they call it a seated squat, it is essentially a leg press. And we know that those are two exercises that are biomechanically fantastic. People always comment that they can work hard, they don't feel it in the ankles, they don't feel it in the knees. And you push someone really, really hard on them. And you've had several of your guests already talk about the fatigue that you can build up. And, you just maybe not the first time right to that 100% failure, but certainly working very hard, that you want them to get off that machine and say, wow, I'm already feeling the muscles of my quadriceps and my hamstrings and my glutes really firing, really reacting. And that is our starting point. Now, from there, we move on to calves. Now, we could do another exercise for the upper legs, but we find that just giving them that little bit of break in between, especially at the beginning, is beneficial. It's very, very hard to work the muscle of the quadriceps and the hamstrings. So just giving them that break in between. I know the calves are technically smaller than the muscles of the upper legs, but we've just found over time that this works best. So whether it's a standing calf or a seated calf, or our favorite is actually, we have a donkey calf machine, which we really enjoy, and working that pretty hard. And we also talked about it in the rapid presentation that I don't always take the calves to failure the first time, even though it's relatively easy to do so in terms of they're just not going to have that cardiovascular response as they would on the leg press. One of the first selling points is, this is going to be a muscle that's very sore tomorrow. And it has a lot to do with the stretch and the loaded stretch that you can have. And when they wake up tomorrow and you told them that it's going to be sore, and of course it is going to be sore, it's just you giving them not the impression, because it's a truthful thing, but okay, you know what you're doing. You have some experience. If you tell them, hey, this is what you're going to feel tomorrow, and then they end up feeling it, it gives them that, okay, my trainer knows what he or she is doing. So simple exercise, calf raise second. Then the third exercise is, again, for the lower body. Now, we talked about that even at a lot of just big box facilities, there's a lot of variation that you can do here. You can do a leg curl, a hip adduction, hip abduction. if you got a hip and back, that's great. I don't normally do a leg extension as the third exercise because I think most of the leg presses are quadricep dominant, but you can still add one in there if you wanted to. So there's a lot of variation here. The two big ones that we've been using at our facility is we have the Dynavex Gluteator, which you had the owner on your podcast a couple months back, and it's a great piece. It's starting to get a lot of traction in our neck of the woods. And then also the pendulum hip and back. And I know not everyone has the pendulum. A lot of people have the Nautilus or even the old hammer strength version. I feel there's a lot of value to working the glutes through a full range of motion. And now it's not to say you can't use a seated leg curl or a lie down leg curl. We use them too. But that's normally where we go to on that third exercise, something that's more posterior chain dominant, a lot more hamstring, a lot more glutes. So from there, that pretty much concludes the lower body. And then we move on to, of course, the upper body, and we start with the upper back because that is the biggest musculature in the upper body. And our general theme is we do two exercises. We do a vertical pull and a horizontal pull. I will say on the vertical pull, a lot of times we'll add in, or not add in, but we'll use a pull over as the vertical. I know it's technically a rotational motion, but we do use it quite a bit. And we just find that having both of them in the routine, it covers a lot of your bases on the upper back. All the major musculature is getting worked. And we did make a quick point that we spend a little bit more time on the execution of the row as opposed to, say, the pull down, because a lot of people like to cheat on the row. And that's something that we say in a lot of the beginning workouts is we show people how they cheat by pulling with their lower back and driving through their legs and all the fantastic ways. You'll see people make the exercise easier for the upper back at most commercial gyms when they're doing rows. So again, it's just things like that where we actually show the people, well, this is how it's done wrong, and then this is how we want it done correctly. And it's just, again, showing the person that you're training that this is your understanding of the biomechanics, this is your understanding of the exercise. And a lot of times when it's done properly, they get a lot greater feeling in their upper back than maybe they've experienced previously to training with you. From here, we move on to the chest. And I made a point to say that, the Big Five workout is pretty prevalent in our side of doing things. And interesting enough, we can maybe talk about this later. Dr. Doug McGuff, who did a much longer presentation, he actually said at the conference that he wishes he had never said the Big Five workout. And it's because it's kind of backed him into a corner that, oh no, this is all that you can do. And that was never his intention by his words. It was, no, if you do these five major compound movements, which of course are the lower body compound motion, leg press or squat, chest press, shoulder press, row, and pull down, that you're going to cover the majority of the musculature of the body. And that's very true. And even when I've had people come into the gym and want to do a Big Five, I say, okay, we can do that. But, I like to add in some neck. I like to add in some rotators. So technically it's not a Big Five anymore. But I don't believe it necessarily takes away from someone's ability to recover greatly. I think it adds value to the workout and to the physical adaptation of the body. And it was great to hear in his words say that, okay, we don't have to just do a Big Five. There's more that we can do here. So where I'm going with this is for the chest, first time out, we almost always do a fly motion. Our big one that we normally go to is the old Nautilus 10-degree fly. I think it was a fantastic piece. But again, you can do it with a simple cable crossover. You don't need the highest end equipment. You can do a lot of this stuff with basics just the same. And we explain to people that, the primary function of the chest is to adduct the arms across the front of the body. Now, again, to probably 90% of your listenership, that's nothing new. They know that, they use that. The people coming in, they've never heard that before. They've a lot of my clients, the first time they come in, they might have had 4 or 5 personal trainers before they came in to see me over the years. And someone may have explained to them the okay mechanics on how to do a bench press, but no one has said, well, this is the primary function of the chest, so this is why we train it this way. And it's just showing them, again, your knowledge base and relating that value to them. So there's nothing wrong with a chest press. Almost all of our clients at one point or another do chest pressing, and we have some really great chest pressing machines. But just for that, like I said, that value add, that information add, we normally do a fly there. And then we pair that with a compound motion for the shoulders, which is an overhead press, of course. And just to kind of add into that, maybe after a few weeks, we say, okay, well, now we're going to do the chest press and we're going to do a lateral raise. So we're going to reverse it. Now we're going to do a compound exercise for the chest and isolation exercise for the shoulders. So you can always play around with that. But to start, it's isolation for the chest and then a compound motion for the shoulders. And it was really great at the conference because I was going to spend a little bit of time we had these slides for those who weren't there. We had PowerPoint presentations. And I was going to spend a little bit of time on the overhead press explaining about, through my experience, putting it on a slight incline as opposed to being a pure overhead press. I was going to go over to all the reasons why it's easier on the shoulder. And just by luck, Patty Durrell at Rock Solid, I think she spoke just two before me. Her rapid presentation was all about training the shoulders and why you'd want to have an incline on the overhead press. And she got into all the details of taking pressure off the rotators, and she did a fantastic thing. So I was able to kind of mail it in and say, we put this on a slight incline, and thank you for Patty for giving everyone all the information. So I actually, I think I was done my rapid presentation about 20, 30 seconds early because of Patty's hard work explaining everything. And just to sum it up, on a MedX overhead press, if you use the bottom handles, it is a slight incline. On the pendulum overhead press, which we use, you can set it up to be on a slight incline. Or if I was using a barbell or a dumbbell, I'd like to have an adjustable bench that wasn't 90 degrees vertical, but was just a bit of an incline back. And I just find that just having that little bit of incline, you're still going to work the shoulders hard, and you can still work them intensely. But I find a lot of people, it's a lot safer on their shoulders than if they do a pure vertical overhead press. Because even if they're not coming in with a known injury, a lot of people go to press that weight up over their head, and all of a sudden it just stops, and there's either an impingement there or, maybe a small injury that's not something that they're even aware of on a day-to-day basis. So it's just one of those small things that I find can have a very positive effect on the overall training with the client, because at any point you cause any sort of discomfort outside, of course, the muscular discomfort that we're looking for, it's going to be a negative for the client, both on how they feel about the session, how they feel about you as a trainer. But of course, we don't want to cause any sort of joint pain when we're training people. We don't want to have any of those physical negatives. So slight incline, but overhead press is where we go to next. After that, we work into the arms, and although the triceps are bigger than the biceps, we normally go biceps first and then triceps, and that's because the triceps are going to have a certain amount of fatigue from doing the overhead press. Now, this isn't to say that we can't do a pre-exhaust, but we're trying to cause more fatigue in a targeted musculature. But for the first time out, we generally give them a break. When it comes to the biceps, a lot of times, this is where I will introduce the first free weight exercise. And I've always said for years that even though we got a very great collection of exercise machines, we've always had a squat rack, we've always had barbells, we've always had dumbbells, and they're still great tools, and they can still be used productively. And I tell a lot of my clients that you're going to be traveling at some point in your life, and there's going to be workouts that aren't done at my facility, through different logistics. I would expect after a few months of me training someone that they should be able to go into just about any gym, not just mine, and create a relatively intelligent and safe and effective workout for themselves. And, they're not going to be able to, say, go to their hotel gym and jump on a MedX machine. Most likely they're not going to be able to. So I want them to be proficient with everything. So this is where we bring in the first free weight exercise generally. And again, you see a lot of people swinging bars around when they're doing their biceps and just going through how we want that motion to be, how we want it done productively, how we're just focusing on the motion around the elbow. It's a nice little teaching moment for you to interact with your client to show them, who you are as a trainer. And, doing a strict set of barbell curls is still a very hard way of exercising. That's never going to change. So now we have free weights integrated. And for the tricep, it's the same thing. We got some very cool tricep machines, but we like to go to the cables next. And just like I said about the barbells, almost every gym you go to, they're going to have a set of cables, just a simple high-low cable. And I've always thought that tricep pushdowns were one of the best tricep exercises that you could do, regardless of what machines you have at your disposal. And just getting them to work on their form, keeping their midsection tight, making sure that they're not moving around on the great machines. They can kind of hold you in place, and it takes a lot of that away from a lot of those issues away from beginners. But making sure that they become proficient with cables and free weights, we do feel that there is a value there. So generally, a tricep pushdowns next, and then the last thing that we spoke about in the rapid presentation was the final exercise. And what we like to do there, and for some people this is not going to be applicable because you do need a certain level of equipment for it, but we like to have a closing exercise that is something very unique to your facility, something that they can't necessarily get anywhere else. And our big go-tos are the MedX Medical low back, or we do neck extension also on a MedX machine. And I've said for years that neck training is one of the most important things that we can do. And actually, I think the first podcast I did with you, Lawrence, we talked about how if there's one thing that I feel that the high intensity community has been ahead of the crowd and ahead of the industry for many years, it's the importance of neck training. And the nice thing is, you can go out and you can buy a used 4-way neck machine online, an old Nautilus or an old Hammer Strength for, I've seen them go for $300 to $500. They don't take up a whole lot of floor space. You don't necessarily need, a MedX Medical neck machine, and it's still going to work fantastic. And it's just going to be one of those things that's going to differentiate you from your competition in the area. You do it slow and controlled, they're going to get a great feeling in their neck. And I can almost guarantee you, wherever your facility may be located, for those who are listening that operate a facility, their client has never done direct neck training. It just has never occurred to them. And, you can spend a couple minutes with them explaining what the benefits are. You can explain that realistically your nervous system runs through your cervical spine. We explained it to a lot of people that if you drive a car and you're in an accident, we hope that people aren't, but if they are, a lot of times a strong neck can be the difference between them walking away and maybe being sore for a couple of days, or having a weak atrophied neck and they have months of rehabilitation due to the severe whiplash. And we have worked with people that is the case. So just having that piece at the end, or that exercise at the end. And if you don't have a great amount of equipment, there's some great stuff online where we talk about manual resistance for the neck. And I've seen some very high-end college strength and conditioning coaches who have everything at their disposal use manual resistance for the neck. Eric McKay is fantastic with it. And just giving them something at the end that, wow, that's different. And you're not doing it different for the sake of being different and unique. It is something that should be in a program. We should be training the muscles of the neck, but just having them walk out thinking, wow, this person really knows their stuff, because I've never heard any of that information before. I've never done anything like that before.
No, that was excellent. And that is essentially the intro workout template that you follow for an average person. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There can be some variation. It doesn't have to be stuck to that, but that would be kind of where we go. And I'll just quickly kind of run down the machines that we use. So the leg press, I already talked about. It's the Avenger leg press, or the pendulum seated squat. For calves, we normally use it's a very simple donkey calf raise machine. For the posterior chain, I think that was the last one that I mentioned. It's the Dynavex gluteator, or the pendulum reverse glute ham, which for those who aren't familiar with it, that's essentially the same motion as the old Nautilus hip and back. For the pull down, it's the MedX pull down. And for the row, we used to use the MedX row, but we got a pendulum row now. I like it a little bit better because it's got a seat that's designed so you can keep your legs behind you a little bit easier than the MedX, and it keeps their torso planted on that front pad. So you really get those arms moving behind the midline of the body as opposed to letting them move through their lower back. Chest, 10-degree chest fly, the old Nautilus, lots of versions of them out there. They're good. Overhead press, I generally use the MedX because it's got those low handles that create that incline that I spoke about. Bicep, triceps are just free weights. Easy bar curl. Generally, I don't normally use the straight bar, even though, it's known that the supination causes more bicep activation. I find that more people just having that slight pronation in their hands and wrists takes the stress off the elbows, and that's, I find, more important to the average person training than maybe getting a few percentage points more activation in the bicep by using the straight bar. On the cable push down, we normally use a simple V bar. There's lots of attachments people can use, but I find the V bar is just the easiest to learn and to get right. And then on that last one, I spoke briefly. It's normally a MedX four-way neck or a MedX medical low back. And I will say something about the neck quickly, that we have the medical neck extension, which is really nice because it holds the body in place. But I generally start people with the non-medical four-way neck because I like them to learn how to keep their posture on their own, training their neck, as opposed to the medical version that holds them up for them. So even though the medical, I think, is a better overall machine moving forward, we actually use just the simple four-way neck because of what I want people to learn from the exercise.
Got it. Awesome. And just a side note, you talked before about how you prefer personally using cables to train your triceps. What's your personal favorite grip for that yourself?
I guess I have two. I like just using I like using the simple V bar. The issue is with that for stronger athletes, and I got a few that have this happens to, and it's starting to happen to me when I bring my weight up. It happens. You can push down a lot of weight on a push down when your triceps get strong, and as you progress in your training, and eventually that weight is literally trying to push you off the ground. So I've had a couple of people, I'm not this strong yet, but I've had a couple of people where I've had to put a weight belt on them just to counterbalance them. So although I like the V bar quite a bit, that is the big limitation. So the other thing that I like to do where we don't run into this problem is I've always enjoyed doing a rope from a low cable and sitting back on about a 45-degree slant and then doing them overhead. I've always felt that caused a great deal of muscular soreness the next day. I get a lot of stretch in the long head of my tricep when I do that, but I can go heavy relative to my strength, and I don't have that feeling of getting pushed off the ground. I find I can really dial in my form when I do that. So V bar when I'm standing and rope when I'm sitting.
Awesome. So no, I really appreciate that. That was really interesting. I love hearing about the template for the intro workout, and I love, you being able to kind of talk about what machines you like to use and why. I wanted to just give more context to listeners, because I know that you guys don't based on, let me rephrase that. So rather than hire a team at the gym there, you have contractors, don't you? So how do you manage that in the context of, when you get a new, I guess, client through the door or prospect who's doing an introductory workout? How do you decide who gets that person? Like, do you mind just adding some color to the business side of that?
Sure. Well, the way that we do that, it's relative to the labor laws of our country. So everything's going to be different everywhere. So, if you were to talk to Blair up in Toronto, who's obviously a friend of both of ours, or Andrew Short, we've had lots of discussions about this. Craig up in Montreal. It's more of just how our labor laws are set up. So that has more to do with that than anything else. But in terms of how we work as a team, all the trainers, and you met a couple of them. You met Katie, Nicole, and Spike. His real name's Mike, but at one we had 3 Mikes here, so we call him Spike. They all came into the gym. They've done some sort of apprenticeship under me. We do have mandatory readings like a lot of our colleagues do. And, there is a system that is to be adhered to. Now, as they become more proficient as a trainer, and especially like when we get into like the MedX medical machines, not all of my trainers use them. Some of them do, some of them don't, because they're not familiar, they're not comfortable enough with them yet. They do have a certain amount of freedom, but it's not like they're going to be able to take someone over to the corner and get, a Bosu ball out of their car or something like that and do something foolish. They understand that there is that general template. Now, if one of them decides, well, we're not going to do the chest fly, we're going to do the chest press, or if they decide, well, you know what, we're going to do 2 chest presses today. We're going to, go from one right to the next to the other. One of them's got a converging movement arm. One of them does not have a converging movement arm. That's still fine. They're just going to do something different to create a bit of a different fatigue. But if they got on there and I seen them doing, say, 20 sets of chest, well, no, that's not what we do here. You need to give me a pretty good explanation of why you think you're doing this and how you think you're going to get better results. So we all work as a team, and there is, like I said, mandatory readings. There is an apprenticeship program. This all happens, but just due to how our country works, it makes more sense for both myself as the owner of the gym and for them as a trainer to have the contraction situation that you were talking about earlier. It's like I said, we can almost do a whole podcast on that and how it would be, say, very different from, I got lots of friends in the States, and there's certain things that they do that I'd love to do up here, but it's illegal. It's just a different law of the land. So we have to work within what we're given. Even, there's a couple guys in the States there that, they're friends of yours and they've been on the podcast, that they have some really great recruiting methods and really great internships. And I think they're really on point with what they're doing for the growth of their company. And they simply would not be applicable in Canada. And, they might be great methods in your country. They might be horrible methods in your country. They might be great in Germany. They might be horrible in Germany. Everything's a little bit different. So we're kind of constrained by, I like to joke with some of my American friends that our right-wing political party is probably closer to their Democrats, which is their left party. And their right-wing party, which is their Republicans, would be exceptionally right-wing for almost anything in Canada. And then we have a left-wing party up here, and they would be just absolutely called socialists, and and they would be absolutely hated by anyone who is center or center right in the U.S. They'd be looking at these people like, I can't believe this even exists. But that's just the political spectrum that is in our country compared to other countries.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, ARX. Are you looking to create a cutting-edge, high-intensity training facility? Are you confused on what equipment to use or how to separate yourself from the masses? Well, then ARX Fit might be the answer you're looking for. I asked Mike Polano from ARX a few questions about how ARX machines are challenging the status quo of the exercise industry around the globe. Mike, if you could, give the listeners a quick summary of why ARX is so different from the traditional machines or tools they're used to seeing in most exercise facilities.
ARX is totally different than anything you've seen before. This isn't just another weight stack machine. We've looked at the last 40 years of exercise technology and used that knowledge to create something entirely new. ARX uses a new form of resistance, a motor, and we pair that motor with computer software so that we can maximize the safety, effectiveness, and efficiency of your workouts. So you may be asking, okay, but how does ARX compare to weights? Traditional machines you see in gyms today are based on lifting metal weights and battling gravity. What people don't realize is that when you're forced to lift a static weight like this, one that doesn't adapt or change while you use it, You're underloading yourself rep after rep, and this unnecessarily limits your ability to make improvements. With ARX, we've taken a totally different approach. We removed weights and gravity from the equation altogether. Instead, ARX combines our patented motorized resistance with our custom computer software to provide you with the world's safest, most effective, and most quantified form of resistance training ever. When you train with ARX, you are training to your perfect level of resistance, both positively and negatively 100% of the time. No more guessing what weight to use. ARX does all of that for you, instantly and automatically. We'll also track and measure every second of every rep, so you can quantify all of your workouts to find out if you're improving and by exactly how much. Whether your goals are bigger muscles, increased strength, stronger bones, or just to look good in a bathing suit, ARX can help you achieve all of these and more, but do so in a fraction of the time it would take compared to traditional equipment. If you're looking for the most efficient, most effective, and most quantified piece of exercise equipment on the market today, then look no further than ARX.
Thanks, Mike. That all sounds really impressive. If you'd like to learn more about ARX, visit arxfit.com and mention that you heard about ARX on the Corporate Warrior podcast to receive an exclusive deal of $500 off shipping and installation off your ARX machines. Do you find that quite irritating as a business owner in Canada? Do you sometimes look at the US and think that you wish the business laws were similar and the politics were a little bit more leaned slightly more to the right? Would you say?
It's like everything else. It has its pros and its cons. Certainly, it's not that Canada is anti-business, but we are definitely not a country that does a great job supporting small business or even large business, for that matter. A lot of the knock on the United States is that they're very big pro-business, but some of the small business have a hard time. I would make the argument up here that unless you're in the oil and gas sector, we actually have lost several large businesses in our area. Where we are used to be one of the biggest manufacturing areas in all North America, and we have lost a tremendous amount of jobs to different states in America because different states have gone out and say, hey, you bring this 500 or 1,000 jobs to our area, we'll build you a plant and you'll be tax free for 20 years. Well, if I'm the owner of that company and I can pay less labor and get a brand new plant and not pay taxes for 20 years, I'm moving. And a lot of times what they do around here is they say, you guys can come down. If you want to come down to the States, we'll give you your job. But, then you have to uproot your whole family, and it's very tough. So certainly in a global market, this is going on. And, I even got some friends that are not in North America, and they're in places where it's very pro-business. And some of the stuff that they can do is just, you'd almost fall backwards into growth. But, we have our pros too. A lot of people in the States ask us whenever I go into the States about, we have universal health care here. And, the pro is no one in this country worries about health care. The con is that it takes a long time to get a lot of procedures done. And a lot of my clients, where we are situated, we're about an hour 15 from the border into New York State. And if one of my clients needs an MRI, they want to book one where we are, they can be waiting for 6 months for it, or they can drive down to Buffalo, which is an hour 10 away, and they got to pay out of pocket, but they can get the MRI that day.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, well, if something happens to you here, you don't necessarily have to worry about it. If you're in a car accident, you're not going to go bankrupt on the medical care because it's covered. But at the same time, for say someone who has torn an ACL, getting it properly diagnosed, getting it properly looked at, and then getting the surgery necessary, well, this could take a year up here. Whereas in the States, it can be very expensive. You don't have health insurance, but you can also get it done the same day. So it's like everything else. There's pros and cons, and there's no perfect system.
What's the reason for the long wait times? Is it just due to overload, inefficiency, bad organization, or?
Again, I could probably even get
above.
Somebody on the podcast who could answer that better than I can. But if you were to go to one of our emergency rooms, people get a cold, they get a bit of a flu, and instead of just going home and taking a few days off work and getting their fluids up and their sleep up, they go to the emergency room because it's free to do so.
Yeah.
And realistically, they shouldn't be there. And when you're going into a system where you'd have to pay for that, you don't go in for it.
Right.
So there's backlogs for people that don't need to be in the emergency room. And it's little things like that. If it's free, people are going to sometimes take advantage. Not everyone, certainly not everybody, but we do have certain issues with that.
Healthcare is a funny thing, and not to digress too much, but I sometimes wonder, in the UK, you have the NHS, which is very similar from what it sounds to healthcare in Canada, in that it's provided for free. Well, not totally, because obviously you're taxed for it, but you don't have to worry. You don't obviously have to pay for healthcare like you do in the US. And it's funny because the Brits will often complain about it. They complain about how slow it is to get seen, how inefficient it is, how badly organized they are, et cetera, et cetera. And actually just made me think there, I wonder if part of the blame is actually the overuse, which you were hinting at there. I also see a little bit of that in Ireland too. And in Ireland, it is the same, but it's subsidized, and you still have to pay to be seen, but it's a nominal amount. And then obviously after that, any surgery or any kind of treatment you have is covered. But then the complete other side to it is I went to America and I was visiting Chicago before Rec 2018. And I went on a food tour, and I was having a conversation with a couple of Americans that were on the food tour. And we were sitting down having dinner, and this one girl was saying that her fiance was choosing his new job based on healthcare as like a primary criteria, as in terms of what healthcare cover he would get. That would barely be an afterthought in the UK. If you got private healthcare as part of your job, that it wasn't even part of the criteria because you have the NHS, right? And I just thought that was so interesting because essentially it makes you realize how, I guess one way you could look at it is it makes you appreciate things like free healthcare or the NHS, which I think unless you have that perspective, unless you have traveled and met different people around the world and understood their situation, their type of healthcare, it's hard to really appreciate what you have. That being said, I'm no expert, and I'm not sure if something like the NHS is actually the best option. And I'm walking really outside of my area of expertise now. And I think this is the first time I've ever ventured into politics. So I'll probably stop there. But, just I wanted to kind of mention that because I thought it was very interesting to get the different perspectives. So, okay, cool. So getting back to the topic at hand. So you talked about the introductory workout. That was really great. And it's interesting to understand the business landscape there as well in terms of, what you do at your business. I'm just curious though, do you want to just add on to that introductory session, what you do? Do you have a process for the conversation beforehand and the conversation afterwards in terms of when you perhaps try and close a sale? Do you want to talk about both of those, the start and the finish as well, quickly?
Absolutely. The one thing I'll say about the introduction, I guess, when you're trying to sell someone to come into your gym, the one thing that I've always believed in, and I have the other trainers, they do this as well. And this is actually something that I got from my father, who is been in business for I think he's coming up on 1979, so decades now. It's when he started, and he was a car dealer who he now sells off-road vehicles, dirt bikes, ATVs, this kind of thing. And this has become more prevalent now with social media and email. Back then, it was more about people calling on the phone. He felt, and I believe this strongly, that the best thing you can do is get them to come in the door. And even in a world where everyone does everything on their phones and online now, they may have emailed 4 or 5 gyms asking, all their questions. And of course, the questions, and I've heard you've talked about this with several other people on your podcast, I want to lose weight, how do I go about doing that? And, what do you offer, this kind of thing? Like the questions are always about the same. You don't normally run into a question that's typically that different. But if they walk in the door, I can tell you that they're relatively serious about training. So someone will send me a big long email about all their different things, and I don't brush it off. I always get back to them, and always make sure that I'm polite. But my response is normally fairly small coming back, and it's that, I'd love to have you come into the facility. I'd love to show you around. I can answer all your questions a little bit better in person, and then I ask what their availability is, and ask if they can set up a time to come in. And if they don't ever get back to that, I can pretty much guarantee you didn't really miss a sale. They were just fishing anyways. But if they're serious enough to come in the door, and most people they'll take that little email, and they appreciate that you took the time to even write them back, because there's lots of, not just personal training or gyms, there's lots of industries out there that people don't even get back to potential clients. You talk to anybody who had to deal with a contractor, or, we're going through renovations right now, and, we have this big painting job, call a couple different painters. Some of them don't even get back to you. Maybe they're so busy that they don't need the business. I don't know, but always get back to people. But if they come in the door, they're relatively serious. And I like to answer all their questions in person. And while they're standing in the gym, they're becoming more familiar with it. They've already driven out to see you. They've already taken care of a lot of their apprehension on their own. So the first thing is try to get them to come in the door. And when I was growing the business I've been doing this since 2016. I got real serious around 2011 though. What really helped me grow the business, and I'm not saying this as a bragging stat, but this is true, and this is one of the ways we were able to get our growth, is that for 14 straight months, if they came in the door, they started training. I did not have one walkout in 14 months. And I still remember to this day, Lawrence, the girl that broke the streak. And the second that she walked in, I already knew it wasn't going to be right for me. Just the very first word out of my mouth, I knew instantly that it wasn't, but the streak was over, and she wasn't really looking to exercise. And I was never going to get her to come in, and she was never going to understand what we do. And that was the end of the streak. But it just showed to me the power of, if they come in the door, they are relatively serious. And it was the same thing when my dad was trying to sell a vehicle. If they come in the door to look at, they might have other vehicles that they're looking at, but if they got enough that they're going to come in, they want to test drive it, they want to see what it is, that is your best opportunity to relay to them what you do, why you're different. And in our industry, we're very, very different. Do you know what Orange Theory is? Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
So they set up a trailer for an Orange Theory maybe a mile or two down the road from our new gym. And they were selling pre-memberships, and they did a big social media blitz and everything else. And, they're a big company, and they're in most of the surrounding towns from where I am. And, obviously what we do is very, very different from what they do. Well, we're fortunate enough now that we have a pretty big base of people training with us that, sure enough, they ask me about what my thoughts are on it, or they're asking for a friend who might not necessarily train with me, and I give my thoughts on it.
What's your response? Just curious.
Well, I try to make a point of not just absolutely ripping somebody apart. I find that in an open market, if you do something, because I believe in open markets, if you are better at what you do and you have a better product, then you would and should be successful. And, if someone wants to come in and they want to, bounce balls off the ceiling and destroy their shoulders with ropes, hey, that's their decision. I'm not going to save everyone on this planet. But at the same time, if they were getting better results, safer results, and they had a better gym, then realistically, they should beat me in my market. But what ended up happening was they could not get enough memberships in their big blitz and all their marketing to open up the facility. So they never actually opened in our market, and they left. And now there's a big thing on social media about the people who did pre-order, because obviously they did get some people who signed up. and whether they're going to get their money back or who they get their money back from. And, all of a sudden their website was down, their social media was down. But I think that's a testament to how long we've been in our area, and we've been positively affecting people in terms of their fitness decisions and how they look at progressive exercise training. So we were really happy about that. Now, I don't necessarily take any pleasure of another business person, I don't know who owned it, not being able to set up. I do think there's room in this world for lots of people to have lots of different businesses. But I also think it's like, well, if they had something better to offer their clients, then it would happen. Then they wouldn't have to worry about business. It would just take care of itself.
Yeah. Well said. Sorry, yeah, continue.
Well, I was going to say then, again, not to get too off track. So then as the finish up, so the intro is we bring people in, we like to do everything in person. And the other thing is, I find that, and it's funny because, we can talk on and on and on about exercise, and we got a pretty good rapport. And when we meet each other in person, we can just go. But when I'm talking to somebody new about exercise, I keep it relatively short. I feel that, realistically 10, 15 minutes is about all you need to get enough of the information across to them. And, I think for most people, they maybe even made up their decision in their mind even before that 10, 15 minutes is up. They're either going to believe in what you do or they're not. And it's up to you as a trainer to get it across to them. And I always believe that we do have a superior product, or we wouldn't be doing this in the first place. But, you don't have to spend an hour or two going through every little detail with them. Just explain the basics. It's intensity. It's safe. It's frequent.
Mike, I'd love to hear, I know you're kind of giving the high level, but I'd love to actually hear what that spiel looks like, because I know that a lot of people struggle. A lot of our colleagues and a lot of my audience struggle to, imagine, right? Or, you don't have to imagine. You learn all this stuff about high intensity training. You read Body by Science, you read Ken Hutchins' work, you read Arthur Jones, and you just got all this knowledge, and you've changed your paradigm, and then to try and condense that down to sort of 10 or 15 minutes. And it is really challenging. And obviously you don't want to bash everything that someone is doing. So how do you do that? How do you do that effectively? What do you say exactly?
Okay. Well, generally when they come in, the first thing that we use as a selling point is the gym itself. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And I explained how, they walk in and now they see 100 pieces. There's stuff everywhere that realistically every piece in there represents some problem that someone had, and I felt that this was the best tool for it. So, I had someone who's got a rotator cuff issue. I went out, I got a Nautilus rotator cuff machine. I feel it's the best one out there. If something surpasses it, I'll probably go out and buy that. So you give them the indication that, yeah, there's a lot going on here, but everything has a function. It has a purpose. A lot of the people that listen to your podcast, they have Med-X machines, a full circuit or even a couple. And you say, this is medical grade exercise. This is the biomechanics have been really, really thought out. And if you want to put somebody on so they can feel the smoothest, that's great. And, I sell the facility first. And I think a lot of your listeners can probably do that. And I know a lot of our mutual friends, they have, it's funny, I might have got the envy award, but I am actually envious of several people's facilities out there. And so I kind of start with the facility first, and I kind of do a bit of a walkthrough, and that only takes, a minute or two. And then I always ask, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Now, if someone comes in, they say, hey, I'm just looking to get a little bit stronger. I'm just looking to, feel a little bit healthier. That's the greatest. That's the easiest. They got their head on their shoulders really well. It's really easy to say, that's what we do. We only need to see it 1 or 2 times a week. We're going to do full body training. And realistically, that's the easiest one to deal with. Obviously, the biggest one you get is the weight loss. And, as you know, you have to explain to them that it's done mostly in the kitchen. And actually, again, I was listening to your podcast with Jay there the other day, and he said an analogy, which I am 100% gonna steal from him. So Jay, if you're listening, I apologize, but I'm stealing it off you. But he said that it's like emptying a pool with a coffee cup. And that is such a fantastic image that you could put into someone's head. And it's true. He's not lying. It's very much true. So what we've been using, which is very similar, I was reading something once in this area. So the closest major city to us is Toronto, and it would be about an hour drive. It's about 100 kilometers from my gym to Toronto. And someone was basically put out there that if you wanted to jog there and back, it would be the equivalent calorie expenditure of like 1 pound of body fat or something. I forget what the exact distance was, but it was something similar, just the way the numbers worked out, that if you wanted to lose a pound of body fat, you'd have to jog there and back. Well, I mean, that would take you like 24 hours of straight jogging basically to do it. So relative to our area, people can get on board with that. And I normally say, realistically, you're going to destroy your joints long before that ever happens. So giving them that visual of, okay, this is what you're looking for, that's fine. And we can give you advice on that. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to build the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, the bones. Like, we're here to make you stronger. And I do explain that, if you have more muscle mass, your metabolism goes up slightly. After an intense workout, your metabolism goes up slightly for a couple of days. So I do say, okay, well, it's maybe 10% of the equation. So it's going to help. It's definitely not going to be a detriment. And you can get into the, if you're losing weight, and your strength training, there's some signaling that occurs that allows the body to more readily take off body fat and try to preserve muscle. So I might get into that a little bit, but because we're not there to sell fat loss, because it's realistically not what exercise should be doing, I try to make it, okay, this is what it is. We can help with it a little bit, but realistically, weight loss is on you, because I'm not going to be with you the other 99% of your week. Yeah. So I don't discount it for them, because it's their goal and that's why they're coming in, but I have to give them the straight facts as well. And I don't think I've lost too many clients because I told them that they're not going to lose a lot of body fat in the gym. I think the honesty, and it is honest, does resonate with people. But you got to explain that. If someone comes in for rehabilitation, which is something that we do a lot of at our place, say they have a lower back issue. Well, I walk them over to the medical low back. They don't know what it is. They've never been on one. They've never seen it in action. But I explain the restraint system. I explain the research that was done. I explain the process that we do. So I'm tailoring it to them. Again, if they have a shoulder issue, I'm not going to take them over to the low back machine because it's not relevant to them. Not to say that they're never going to use it. It's not to say that having a stronger back isn't going to be beneficial to them. But it's not relevant to what they're coming in the door for. Same thing. If they have a neck issue, I'm going to take them to the neck machine. And again, they're just getting more comfortable with what you're doing. The other thing is, I find that a lot of people, and this goes for anyone in sales, and again, I got a lot of this from my dad, who he is a salesman, and he's been at it for a very long time. He would have salespeople that would talk you out of buying the car. They said too much. The person's in the door. They want to know what you do. You give them the facts, and then don't be afraid to ask for the sale. When do you want to start? Or a lot of times they'll say, when can I start? Well, then at that point, it's done. You get out of your own way. You say, hey, this is the schedule. What does your schedule look like? You get that time slotted in. You get your contact information. A lot of times someone will say, get in touch with me via email. And I say, okay, well, you have my email, but here's also the cell phone number for the gym. Obviously I do a lot by text, and I just make sure that we're connected, and I set up the time. And normally the last piece of advice that I give them is we keep the gym relatively cool. I actually had one client, it's kind of a funny story, that they were upset that they didn't sweat as much as they thought that they should. They felt that sweating was somehow an indication of their intensity. And I explained to them quickly that no, it just means you're overheating. If you want to do this workout outside in the winter, you're not going to sweat at all. So the next time they came in, I bumped the thermostat 5 degrees. Well, they sweated like crazy. There was no difference in the exercise. There was no difference in the routine. Probably a little bit more resistance because hopefully they're a little bit stronger. They sweated like crazy. So just turn the heat up. So I explained to them that, come in with proper gym attire. And I say most people, first, second exercise, they're wearing long sleeves because it's cool. As their body temperature does rise because of the exercise, most people are in a t-shirt for the duration of the workout. And then, in the summer, most people wear shorts. In the winter, most people wearing long pants. I just tell them about, proper attire and clean shoes, and then that's it. And I keep it very, very simple. I find that a lot of salespeople, not just in our business of exercise, they talk themselves out of the sale, or they talk the people out of the sale. They want to work out with you. And maybe if you're a very brand new beginner and you got no experience and it's a brand new facility, well, you might have to work a little bit harder. But, once you've even been up for 6 months and you have a great product, which I think a lot of your listeners probably do, it sells itself. And you just give them the facts, tell them what you do. You don't have to just, sing all your own praises and talk about all the great things you are. Just tell them what it is, get out of your own way. And in most cases, they're going to start. And then I find that the biggest thing with retention is just whether or not that no one really enjoys intense exercise, but if they can understand the benefit of it. For some people, they're going to do it once, even if it's a 5 out of 10 intensity the first time, and it's too much. And, they were never going to stick around, and it is what it is. But a lot of people, I do feel, intrinsically understand that pushing themselves this hard in a safe manner has a gigantic health benefit to them. I feel that even though they might not read Body by Science or Arthur Jones or Ellington Darden or anyone else, and they don't need to, they at some level understand that this is something that they should be doing.
Yeah, it's just an intrinsic feeling, isn't it? After you train, you don't necessarily need to read all the books to feel it intuitively, for sure. Now, do you offer free introductory workouts or complimentary, as most people prefer to say, or do you charge for the first workout?
No, and again, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, because we have a lot of friends that do the free workout and they believe in the free workout. I don't. And I'll give you my side of the argument for that. Again, this is going back to even before my exercise days. I found that if you did anything for free, and I understand you call it complimentary instead of free. I understand the linguistics there. I just find that you even have to put a $1 value on something for people in their minds to value it. You do anything for free. I just find that you're not necessarily going to get the people you want with the right mentality that you want. And I get it. It's like they've never done what you've done. They're not going to be familiar with it. I get all the pros and why you'd want to do that. And I'm sure we have people in our industry that sell off that first introductory workout. But it's my feeling that when they come in, we consult for free. We'll talk to people for free. But if you're going to come in and exercise, even the very first session, it's a paid for session. And it's just my belief, and I might be right, I might be wrong. Doesn't really matter that much. But if they don't pay for it, they don't have that initial value attached to it. So again, that's just my point of view. I know some of our friends who they do the complimentary introductory workout, and their businesses are doing just fine and they're successful. It's just my personal feeling that if they're not paying at least some monetary value towards it, that again, we talk about the intrinsic feeling of the workout. The intrinsic feeling that they have is that, well, maybe this isn't worth it as much to me. And I could be dead wrong with that, Lawrence. I really could be. But that's just where I feel it is right now. So we don't do complimentary workouts.
That's fine. So what do you know what your conversion rate is at the moment for new workouts?
Like when they come in the door?
Yeah.
If they come in the door, we got to be sitting around 90%.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's funny because I'm bringing up your one of your last podcasts that just got posted. I just listened to in the car the other day, and it was with Jay. And it's funny, I don't really know him particularly well. I think he's a little bit younger than me, and I don't even think he's that far from me. He's about 5 or 6 hours from me or something like that. But his what he's experienced and what he's talked about is, I guess you could say, very similar to what I had gone through at different stages of the development of STG. And he was talking about that, if they come in the door and he doesn't sell them, he's like, well, what's wrong? I think he might have even said, not even what's wrong with me, but what's wrong with them. But but the same idea. He expressed that he had a very, very high conversion rate, and certainly it probably helps him that he's in tremendous shape. For instance, like when you met Spike at the conference, and for those who are familiar with my staff, he's kind of like my right-hand guy at STG, and trains really, really hard, and he's got an excellent physique. He's very, very strong. If I get a young male coming in the door and I know that he's got, a testosterone thing and, a muscle is going to sell him, well, I might get Spike to talk to him because he's just going to look at Spike and I want to look like him.
Sure.
And just even little things like that. Hey, that is the person. So I'm sure that helps, but I can't stress enough that once you get into a groove, the vast majority of people coming in the door, you realistically should be able to get them. I mean, you're going to have a better product, that's for sure. Your instruction, it should always be evolving. You should always be getting better, but I'm going to say that most of your listeners are probably better than the vast majority of trainers that are out there. I really like what some of the people have done, like Mike Lepowski and Andrew Shore with the IRT and Luke with his staff. They really promote the idea of a fitness professional as opposed to a personal trainer. And, again, maybe we're just splitting words here, but I do think they do a really good job of portraying that image and having this, that, okay, I'm not just going to see someone who's going to count my repetitions, but someone who's really going to have the knowledge and put forth that effort towards me and towards my goals. So I think that's going to go a long way. And I don't know what my conversion rate is on emails. I'd say it's probably a little bit less, but I think, again, that's because the vast majority of people who send me some sort of email or text message or some sort of social media correspondence, it's always, okay, come into the facility. That's the goal. Come into the facility. And not everybody comes in, but for those who do, and most of them do, but for those who do, like I said, it's probably right around 90%. And like I said, it's one of these things, you're not going to sell everybody. There's always going to be someone that, I'm really looking for a treadmill. And even though you explain to them why, you don't have a treadmill and, you could easily put one in, they're not, unbelievably expensive compared to a MedX medical machine, but you explain to them you feel it's an inefficient tool, they're still going to go walk on a treadmill somewhere. And, they might have heard from somebody that you're really great and they, and someone really likes you, but it's not their cup of tea. But realistically, if they're coming in the door, you should be making that sale. You should have a very good attempt at making that sale.
Yeah. Funny what you said about Spike. I remember when we got finished with our early morning workouts, the MedX Precision Fitness crew were getting their photos taken, and Blair just shouted, "Yeah, can we get Spike's arms in the picture, please?" But yeah, no, really nice guy. I was actually sitting next to Spike during the final evening at dinner, and we had a really good chat. A really good guy. So, just curious about I just want to ask you a question about the details. So, when someone first walks into your facility, do they pay at the desk or something like that before they even start their workout and start their conversation with you or one of your trainers, or do they pay after the fact?
Somewhat individual question. We got a few different methods of payment. It's funny. We talked about the government a little bit with it being different in Canada and other countries. One of the things that I find is very prevalent in our country that seems to not be in many other countries is e-transfer of money. There is so much e-transferring in Canada of money, and it doesn't seem to be as caught on with some other countries. And even I can remember, 10 years ago, everyone in Canada had what was called an Interact debit card, and it was basically the money came straight out of your account instead of a credit card. And I'd be going into the States, and nobody accepted an Interact card. It was only credit card, and it was kind of like a culture shock. So what do you mean you don't accept an Interact card? Everyone accepts an Interact card. Basically, we have obviously cash, check, but the vast majority now is switching to e-transfer, and sometimes they do it the day before, sometimes they do it the morning of. You can do it on your phone, so sometimes they do it right at the end of the session. So there isn't necessarily this is how we do it every single time, But again, it's a lot of times it's just done on your phone before or after the workout via e-transfer.
What software do you use in your business for that?
It's every Canadian bank has their own app, and you don't even need the app. You do it via email. They email you.
Wow. Okay, that's different. Something I've not heard of before.
Again, it's very weird how Canadian banking works. They use stuff that is very common day place for us here, and then if we go fly to a different country, or in our case, we can just drive into the States. It's like a different world. And like I said, that Interact card, everybody used an Interact card 10 years ago. And you go to a restaurant in the States, an hour over the border for us, and their readers wouldn't take it. They couldn't read an Interact card. They look exactly the same as a credit card. They work exactly the same. It just draws your actual money out of your account instead of doing it on credit. And same thing, I'll be buying something in the States, and I say, well, do you take e-transfer? And they don't know what an e-transfer is. And that's just how it's done up here.
Cool. Awesome. So thank you for going through all of that. I think that's really useful to a lot of the business owners and personal trainers listening to this. I just wanted to finish up with, I guess, talking about Simon's visit. So did he come and visit you after the conference and hang out for a little bit?
Yeah, he did. It was great. I knew of Simon through, our community is only so big, and I knew all about Hit Uni, and I'd seen some of his content before. And he came up to me at the conference. And again, this is why I tell people that, you got to go to these events, because it's just fantastic getting to know people. And he asked me how far a place called Kitchener, Ontario was from my gym. And it's about a 40-minute drive. And, he lives on the other side of the pond. And just by chance, he has family that lives 40 minutes from me. So, he said, could I come down to the gym? Absolutely. So we set up a time for him to come in, and I think he's going to be putting out some content at some point. He had a very professional looking camera with him, and he had, I believe she's his partner. I didn't ask, but I believe she is. And she filmed a lot of content while he was in there with us. He didn't do like a full on workout. It was more about he wanted to try a few things, and we talked a little bit about. I made this machine a couple years back. We actually haven't got a proper name for it. We call it the dual extension, but it was a machine that Arthur Jones talked about in the early 70s, and he wrote 2 articles on it, and I believe it was called The Final Breakthrough, and his idea for the ultimate exercise machine. And a few years back, I talked to some people like Jim Flanagan and Greg Webb and some of the people that were there from the early days, and Boyer Co., and asked why he never built it or what happened to the prototype. And anyways, long story short, after a couple of years, we were able to build it. And Simon knew about it. He wanted to try it out, and it's essentially a machine where you do a rotation around the hips and a rotation around the knees simultaneously, which is what a squat or a deadlift essentially is, but you do it with rotational resistance on the machine. So it's very intense. The contracted position is very hard. And he got to try that out, and we did some content there. He wanted to try out some of the Medx medical machines. He had a little bit of experience with them before, and it was more or less just a bit of a walkthrough where, if there was anything he was interested in, he said, yeah, jump on that, try it, see what you think. And we had a pretty good dialogue, and he interviewed me a little bit, asked some questions, and we had a lot of fun. It was good having him there, and he's a really, really good guy, really knowledgeable guy. And again, going back to the beginning of the interview here, talking about, I'm absolutely looking forward to having people come by and see the place, get a workout in. There's a great restaurant up the road that we normally take people to afterwards, and it's been a lot of fun. It's I'm not a huge traveler, Lawrence. Like I'll go to the odd place here or there, but I'm a bit of a homebody. So maybe the real goal was, instead of me traveling to go to these places, that if I can get enough people from all these different backgrounds and cultures and training backgrounds to come towards me, then come to STG, then it's probably going to make me really happy.
Fair enough. Yeah. That was Simon's partner, Joanna. I
Yes.
believe is the way you pronounce the name. I believe that, his girlfriend, I believe. I don't think they're married. I could be wrong.
I don't know. I don't ever, even with my own clients, I don't ask anything like that. If they give me that information, then that's fine. But I never ask or assume anything like that. But I was under the impression that they were certainly together.
You're the consummate professional, Mike.
I try to.
No, you are very professional, actually. I always remember meeting you in 2018. Just the way you approached me and shook my hand was there was something about it. You were very respectful. You could see that I was kind of like walking around like, oh God, I don't know anyone. And I'd only just kind of walked down and started walking through the lobby. And you kind of made me feel very comfortable because obviously you were with your crowd. And I was kind of heading over to Owen and Blair who were at the bar. And no, I really appreciate that. So just wanted to say that as well.
We're all in this together, Lawrence.
That's it. That's awesome. I knew because obviously Simon was at the conference and he was there alone, but I believe Joanna was with, I think Simon told me his family were there as well. Like he'd brought the whole family over and they were visiting family there, like you say, and sort of sightseeing. So that's really nice. Awesome. Mike, this has been a lot of fun. I just wondered if you had anything else, any kind of parting words, I guess on the topic of maybe we could keep it related to providing a strong introductory workout. Is there any kind of a parting words you've got before we wrap up?
I just think that probably a lot of people who are your listeners and hopefully are listening to this podcast is that I think a lot of us have a really great product and also to believe in what you're doing. I know like it's very easy for some people to get discouraged because there's a huge fitness industry out there and we're not necessarily the biggest section of it, but I do believe we are one of the most intelligent. I do believe that we are one of the most professional. And I think I would say believe in what you're doing, believe in helping your clients on the business standpoint. I think it takes care of itself. There's going to be battles here and there. There's ups and downs. But just believe in what you're doing. And also, I think with stuff like your podcast and the conference and social media, a lot of these people who maybe have already been there before you, reach out to them. I talked to the last time we had discussion. I just kind of started a more personal relationship with Roger Schwab because I got to meet him in person a couple times. This is someone who I still bend his ear from time to time because, he's been at this for so long and something that might be a problem for me, it might be nothing for him because he's already experienced it. So, stay friendly with everybody. Everyone is here to help. Everyone, should really realistically be on the same page. Put out those great introductory workouts, whether you charge or whether you do them complimentary, it's all good. And focus on your craft. At the end of the day, I think the most important thing is the workout itself. It's, everything else is secondary to that. It's fine if you're business oriented. It's fine if you're growth oriented. It's fine if you're doing it predominantly for yourself. I know a lot of guys in the industry, they built a gym just so they could, they're bodybuilders and they do it for themselves and it's their way of paying for their habit. And that's fine too. But, just the workout is the most important thing. I think the better we make the workout, the more productive we make the workout, always within the context of safety, that everything else will kind of fall into place from there.
Excellent. Well said. And to find the blog post, before I say that, what's the best way, Mike, for the listeners to find out more about you?
We're actually rebuilding our website right now. Every time we put out a new gym, we always build a new website, and it will still be the old URL, which is stgstrengthandpower.com. If you go on social media, Facebook or Instagram are the two that we use the most. If you search for STG Strength and Power or Michael Petrella, it should come up relatively easily. And we just try to put out decent content here and there, and sometimes it's machines based, sometimes it's had some successful clients, or just trying to make our community bigger, but at the same time make it smaller in the sense that everything is more accessible for everybody.
Great stuff. And for everyone listening, to find the blog post for this episode, which will have all of these show notes, links to podcasts that Mike's mentioned, video tour that we talked about of Mike's new facility, which is incredible, and will have you salivating and, putting down deposits for building your own equivalent. Please go to highintensitybusiness.com/intro workout. And for all episodes, please go to highintensitybusiness.com/podcast. And until next time, thank you very much for listening.
Discover how to become a great personal trainer and build a successful high-intensity training business. Check out highintensitybusiness.com. highintensitybusiness.com.
This episode is brought to you by ARX, the most innovative, efficient, and effective all-in-one exercise machines I have ever seen. I was really impressed with my ARX workout. The intensity and adaptive resistance was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I love how the machine enables you to increase the negative load to fatigue target muscles more quickly, and I love how the workouts are effortlessly quantified. The software tracks maximum force output, rate of work, total amount of work done, and more in front of you on screen, allowing you to compete with your previous performance to give you and your clients real-time motivation. The ARX uses a computer-controlled motor to give you the exact amount of resistance your clients need 100% of the time. This means that the resistance can never become dangerous, is intuitive and simple to use, and can provide you with all of the results you and your clients are looking for in a fraction of the time. ARX is highly effective and efficient in delivering all of the benefits of exercise, including increased strength, muscle mass, cardiovascular conditioning, bone mineral density, and injury recovery. As well as being utilized by many high-intensity trainers to deliver highly effective and efficient workouts to their clients, ARX comes highly recommended by world-class trainers and brands, including Bulletproof, Tony Robbins, and Ben Greenfield Fitness. To find out more about ARX and get $500 off install when you place an order, please go to arxfit.com and mention HIB, that's High Intensity Business, in the How Did You Hear About Us field. So again, to get $500 off install when you place an order, head on over to arxfit.com and enter HIB in the How Did You Hear About Us field.